So the goal of this is, I think from my viewer and listener experience, they're curious, like, how do we engage an architect? What are the types of fees? I think just people think you're outrageously priced, but they don't have a number to it. They don't have no idea. They just think it's out of their realm. What are your services at these days? Custom homes. I know that hillside's a big niche for you.
Yeah. So I think
Backyard stuff. Like, what are the other reasons? Or
we'll still work on like remodels and additions.
okay,
But yeah, if we're gonna really what I want to, the way I want to be perceived, which is actually just how I've set up the business anyway, is more if you want something unique. If you, let's say someone comes to you, they're like, oh, I have a floor plan I like, and they're actually talking to you, like, can you send me a builder who maybe has floor plans already? Typically, that's not the person we're going for. Because you could tell just by that, you could tell two things by that. One, that they're trying to get something for as little as possible,
yep.
or that they're just actually completely clueless about the process. So those are two different things. I'm always happy to talk to people about that because what the other thing I do, and you mentioned like the price and all that stuff, there's a big price tag often to custom and just architecture in general that people might have this perception.
Yep.
What I offer anyway is something that is not like the full shebang right away. It's the zoning research and all the things you need to consider when before you buy the land or while you're in your due diligence period with the land to
Right.
determine what you can and cannot build on the property. Look into the easements and all that stuff. So that gives me the opportunity to one, educate if someone is completely clueless, but also you get to engage us in how we think at a lesser price tag. So now an analysis of the property like that is like $1,500 and something we could do in about 2 weeks. We could finish that in about halfway through your process of buying the land. And then you get a very clear picture of what you can and cannot build, but also what it's like to work with us.
Hmm.
And if you want to work with an architect at all, but you
You
get
know,
yeah,
yeah, it's like when we help people with rental properties, like
yeah,
a tenant, like, yeah, we don't even know how to engage a realtor on this because we don't know how it works. And I'm like, this is how it works. We have a fee. It's less than buying or selling property, obviously, but you'll get a feel for what we're about. I
yeah,
think we can relate. That's a big piece of what we should be talking about. I
perfect. Yeah,
think the ability to know how to engage an architect or a realtor that are not as I want to buy or sell real estate, I think that might help the consumer that's watching or listening to what we're going to put out there. I think that'll help them.
agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, and it's cool that you work with people in that capacity, and then that's the idea behind charging for charging not a ton of money to do a
Yeah.
land type analysis.
Yeah. And I tell them, like, look, there's not a ton of money in it. That's why most agents don't work with renters. But now we have this relationship. You know how we operate, you know how we work. And when you or someone know that's interested in doing work and needing a realtor and a real estate advisor, we're here. And that's a huge part of it. Okay.
Perfect. Yeah, we could talk about that.
Should just be recording what we're doing right now. And then have
It,
an editor just put the whole thing together.
it is all being recorded. So I
Oh,
have it. Yeah, it's going to be
it says
it's recorded.
the video is?
The video is recorded and there'll be a transcript, all that stuff. I have a
No,
thing
it's
called,
not. Really?
yeah, at
Oh,
least mine
sweet.
is. Yeah.
Oh, usually it tells someone like, hey, you're being recorded. Oh, it does say recording up top.
Yeah.
Oh, good. All right.
I hid the video of it because for me it'll show like three windows and one is just like a window of like a just as like Fixer AI. That's the thing that's
I
recording.
see that on my end. Yeah, I
Oh,
see
you
that.
see it? I
Yeah.
hid that on mine so that my video is just us two and a little bit bigger.
How do you do that? Oh, hide
Ah,
non-video participants. I just did it.
there you
Sweet.
go.
There you
Yeah.
go. Oh, nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, that works. But yeah, so how to approach our specialties. You want to go into that? Like you mentioned, like the specialty is something unique. Someone that isn't just looking for cookie cutter, someone that's
Yeah, for me, that's why the niche of hillside made sense. It's because someone designing on a hillside is typically not looking at cut corners. They're looking to build like their dream
yeah,
home, amazing views, all this stuff. So you cut out a lot of the people that would be, I guess,
tire
not as serious.
kickers. Yeah,
Tire kickers or just people trying to save a dollar. They're not looking to save a buck. They're looking to build a dream home.
yeah,
Their goals are clear. And so the people you run into there sometimes are like the ones who think they could build their hillside home for $1 million because sometimes the land's cheaper. But typically, if the land is cheaper on the hillside, it's because it's very difficult to build on. And then,
exactly.
then your house is not going to cost $1 million. It's going to cost more like $3 million.
No big
So
deal. You got this.
no, but that's also why we do exactly. That's why we do the research for them and guide them that way.
Yeah, I got that. What other ideas do you have or wanted to get out of this?
At least a little bit of for me and you, like cross promotion, obviously between the two of us. And then one of the things I would ask you is more what makes a hillside plan of yours, someone looking to build on a hillside, different than a more typical even land, like a land deal that's not hillside versus hillside. What would you say is the difference, and how do you approach that type of person differently?
What was the first question? What's the difference between someone that wants to buy hillside versus non-hillside?
Yeah, just
I
land or an already
yeah,
existing home,
yeah.
either one. Yeah.
I think at the end of the day, I'm just trying to think like the type of people. The type of person that's going to buy hillside, I would say is similar to the type of person that wants to be on water or on a golf course. Like they have a
Mhm.
very specific desire that they're trying to obtain. Like, this is my thing, and I'm trying to create this to become a reality. And it's not for them just buying a home to live in, but it's a state of being.
Yeah,
Like I need this for myself because it's what I'm about. I would like to be on the hill and overseeing the city. It's a statement.
yeah, and maybe something that defines success for them, that
Correct.
helps them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think when you're like really looking at it, it's not just someone that's I need a good roof over my head for my family. This is more of a it's a statement. Like I live on Camelback Mountain. I live on Mummy Mountain. And to them, that's a part of their dream. And is it because of success? It could be a success thing for them, how they define that, but it also could just be they've always had this dream of doing that because they hike Camelback Mountain a lot. It could be like that.
Yeah. Nice. I love that.
When you're thinking of the clients that you help, either Hillside or Silverleaf or PV, let's just look at those three. So you have Silverleaf, which is Hillside sometimes.
Sometimes, yeah.
Then you have PV and Arcadia. Let's go there. So you have Hillside, you have PV, that's flat land, and then you have Arcadia. What are the differences between those clients of yours?
I would think
Or are there any difference?
I think the most major difference you would see between someone going in Silverleaf or Desert Mountain or one of those kind of communities is they're slightly more remote, and often it might be like a second or third type home situation where they don't care. Silverleaf is a little bit closer in town than some of these other northern Scottsdale communities, but they're okay that the amenities aren't as close. They're okay that they drive everywhere because this is not their everyday home. When you go to a PV or Arcadia, these are people typically who it is their everyday home. They like the centralized kind of location of those things. It's easy to get to a lot of different places. And oftentimes people who have lived, who like have been here a long time. They kind of love being here and aspire to be there from earlier on in their kind of careers or lives. And that's, I would think that's the most kind of major difference. I do think, I know Arcadia, some people think of it like it has a look to it. So a lot, I think you saw a lot of modern farmhouse for a long time being put up in Arcadia. So some
Yeah.
people like that kind of style. So some people associate the style with the place too a little. PV felt more like estates, where Arcadia feels more, was a little bit tighter, and PV's more larger plots of land and more remote and estate type feel.
And also just like the landscape versus the
Yeah,
two though, right? Arcadia is very much like California to me. It's more green, lush. There are parts of PV that are like that, but traditionally it's more desert.
yeah, I would definitely agree. Same thing. So I place maybe Arcadia more with built more in central corridor because they are the flood irrigation still there for a lot of the lots. So
Mhm.
people do like it is definitely more green and like the ranch style kind of home. Where PV, you're right, feels a lot more deserty and more like Arizona, more like a Southwest ranch rather than a ranch you would see somewhere else in the country.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that makes sense. So, do we want to use a lot of what we just did, or do we want to do this again?
We could just keep talking and then we could have someone edit it so that
I'm
it,
thinking,
it
yeah,
flows better. Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, the question of are we keeping it or not wouldn't be on there. Like just the snippets of Arcadia PV, hillside people versus non. I think those are like really unique conversations and how to approach us too, like what we talked about.
Yeah.
Okay, what other goal did you have, or did you have another goal when it comes to what we're because my main thing was what I said. I think there's a lot of people out there that are just not sure how to work with an architect
Mhm.
and what type of project you get an architect into versus just a remodeling company that says that they can create what they want based on their needs from their existing home.
Yeah. I would say the major difference between like where you would switch from like a remodeler, more of a remodel general contractor to a someone who does more than remodels.
Yeah.
The biggest jump is from doing an addition versus not. So a lot of the remodel contractors live in that zone of like master bath, kitchen, the rest of the bath remodels. And they'll
Hmm.
stay in that zone because there's tons of work in there and they could pump them out kind of thing. But where they lack a little bit a lot of the time is when you have to do an addition and get permits and all that stuff. So a lot of times like a remodel contractor, interior designer pair, and when they need to get permits is when it becomes more like that's not their specialty anymore. Then comes either more of an architect or a draftsman, depending on the scope of work. But so if it's a more extensive remodel, interior designer, remodeling contractor might have to engage either just a structural engineer or an actual drafting or architecture firm to just help them remove walls on the inside, put in beams, things like that, where it's just a little bit more complex. Or if you're going to take the kitchen, move it from one area of the house to a complete other area of the house, now you're talking about cutting out the slab, moving plumbing. If you're changing the HVAC system, then you're getting into permit territory. And that's where it makes a switch. And it is a per city thing, like when you need permits. But the general answer is if you're changing any systems, like structural system, electrical, mechanical, plumbing, or electrical. Did I say electrical? I think I did. Mechanical, plumbing, electrical, structural. If you're
Yeah.
changing those for any of those four things and not just replacing like something for something else, like a toilet for a toilet, but if you're moving the toilet, now you're entering more permit territory. And that's where a remodeler, an interior designer may not be as skilled to work on that. So they'll start engaging.
What is the example that you would get a draftsman versus an architect?
Probably on something like I just mentioned. So if you're moving, let's say the kitchen, and you're going to need for the city, and let's say you add a sink or two sinks overall and a powder room or something. Now you're getting into where you would need permits, but not necessarily an architect to draw these things. I
Okay.
would say most typically, if there's an addition involved, then maybe go to an architect. Or if the let's say you are in like a PV and you're just like gutting the whole interior, then get an architect because you're going to start even with the interior designer, they may not realize which walls are bearing and stuff. And even though we can't always tell, we have a kind of a good view or a potential view of how it might be affecting the overall structure. So you get architect, structural engineer involved. And if you're changing stuff with the roof, all that, then you want mechanical, plumbing, electrical. So when you need those trades, architect, structural engineer, mechanical, plumbing, and electrical, either consultant or engineer, that's when I'd say start engaging an architect. You could always ask us, and then if it seems like something worth hiring an architect for, we would be honest. And if it seems more like, hey, maybe you should find a draftsman that could help you just as easy, I would do that.
But you could handle both.
Correct. Yeah.
So I think and this is what we do as well. It's not what we do versus what we don't do. Come to us for what we do. Don't come to us for what we don't do. I think it's more of like, how do we become the authority in what it is that we're doing in real estate or in your life, like design, or not design, but part of it's design, but building, creating, right? In the creation of real estate, people need to go to Dwell Boldly, because if you're not doing it, you have someone that can help them do it. When someone's coming to us, like when we talked about the land class that I just did, I don't do all the things. I'm not going to see and know how your septic, if there's a septic tank there, but I have the people that you can talk to make sure the septic is okay, right? So
Mhm.
it's becoming the authority in the space for people to feel confident to come to us for those things, even if we're not the ones actually doing the work or it's not under our hat, but we know someone that can help them.
Yes. Although sometimes, and I've run into this more lately, so sometimes there are draftsmen that I've referred to draftsmen before who did not perform very well. So sometimes I do hesitate to refer to them. So I have to find someone good. And the way I'll talk to anyone, and I think you're the same way. And I don't think there's ever like a dumb question either. So if you're not in this world, how are you supposed to know these things? So I never want people to feel like they're like that. They think themselves like, oh, I'm dumb or something. Never want
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yep.
But yeah, so we definitely exist to help people, not always refer, but let's say you need a land surveyor, we definitely have that. Septic companies too. We know of a couple that can help out and could guide someone to at least so that they know what they're getting into before they get into it.
Yeah. Ultimately, I think that's what people are looking for. And we have to always tell people up front, hey, this person's worked really well with a lot of our clients, and our clients have been very happy with them. There has to be some like disclaimer, like it's not us. We're
Hmm.
hoping that they can get the job done for you. Obviously, they're going to connect. If they do a poor job for them, it can hurt us a little bit, but we have to just make it clear that they've done a lot of great work. There's unfortunately, the more we refer and the more clients' needs that we service or tend to, there's going to be times where clients call us and say, hey, you sent me this person. They're terrible. I really didn't enjoy their whatever they do.
Yeah.
And we have other clients that are like, that person's like the best person ever. So sometimes it's a just it's a they don't sync very well together, or who knows. So
Yeah.
it's
And yeah, no, and I agree. And I think generally in business too, there's people that you click with and there's people that you don't. And I don't know, I've had clients before where you say one thing, they hear what they heard, and then you're like, what just happened? Because then you receive an
Yeah.
email like, hey, didn't we say this? I'm like, oh, I thought we said this. And it's just like communication breakdown. And I don't know. I think that kind of stuff definitely happens. That's just about being in business and then figuring out who you mesh the best with. Yeah. So of course, when you're referring someone, you don't know if those personalities are also going to match or they're speaking styles.
You mentioned just now the being in business, you don't always mesh with everyone. Who is your someone though that you typically mesh with, you enjoy working with? Who is that client? There's probably a couple, right? We have a couple too, but who is it for you that typically like that's our person?
I think you remember me from what I used to ask for in our BNI group there.
Sure.
But a lot of times, so the two clients I've had that have been the best ones as far as as far as us meshing well together and the end product being like a really nice home, both had a similar profile and they're both maybe between 45 and 50. Oh, they ran their own businesses or were CEOs of their business and unmarried, just had a girlfriend, and just the request was design me something awesome and very hands off, not caring, but more, we want you to do your thing. And I think this stems from them being the CEO type, right? Let people do what they're good at and take a step back and let that person's light shine. So I think that's part of what the where the CEO kind of character comes into play. The single male, I don't know why, but whatever, we seem to get along for not single, but unmarried. And then they just loved contemporary architecture and they wanted like a house that was something that was nice, expressed how they were, and they allowed us the freedom to design the way we thought, the way we could translate their desires into a built form, put it that way.
You mentioned contemporary. I know that you're not exclusive to contemporary, but is that your more of your passion?
Yeah, so contemporary is we've had this talk too. I came and talked to your agents, right? Contemporary versus modern, where
Yep.
they're both the two words mean the same thing, but modernism is also like an art slash architecture movement that carries with it a lot of this kind of historical context. So when you're talking about modernist language, you're talking about kind of the modernist period. And then the word contemporary is more something that just means of today's times. So there's more freedom in design. And that's basically the way that I interpret it, which is let's us be creative. Let's us pick and choose what we think makes sense, how to be inspired by either the lot, the piece of property that we're on, or the client, or how do we mesh both of those and using kind of our knowledge of the basics, like the basics of composition, form, balance, all these things as they relate to a piece of architecture and spatial composition, all that stuff and just be able to freely interpret that and get a bunch of inspiration from different places. And that's basically just contemporary because we're just using our knowledge of today, putting it together.
It's interesting because when I see something with like very clean lines, not over the top, is I think of contemporary also as in like furniture design, like the things in the home are contemporary. Like I would say like the things behind you are contemporary versus a farmhouse or traditional, not the architecture, but the things in the home. And sometimes the things in the home can make someone feel like that home is different than what it is because of the style that they have in the home, which is like a whole nother conversation, I think. Like when planning and staging a property in order to sell and how to attract people to a property. Just like if someone were to want to build a spec home with you and their goal is I want you to design something really cool for us to sell, not for them to live in. You do that too, correct?
I do.
So the selection of materials can almost change the outcome of if it's contemporary or modern, which is the same word, but from a different era. But when I think of things like clean lines or jagged edges in a home, and then more of like sleekness or shiny, I'm like, that's contemporary. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong, but that's just what I say. But if it's like shiplap walls or it has wainscoting and chair rails, it's more traditional or farmhouse.
And I would say the major difference is that it's remembering a time in the past where wainscoting and all that stuff. But then you could just complicate it further and say we just use more of like a contemporary wainscoting, and maybe that's just a flatter edge or less curved lines, more straight lines, things like that. So it does get complex, but to keep it, and the other thing you mentioned that's true is that the interior design of a place versus the architecture of the place, they're not the same thing, and that's why they're separate professions. And there's interior designers that are great, interior designers that are not so great. There's architects that are great, and other ones that aren't. But when they do come together and really make a complete project, that's always the goal. So I'll give you an example, and you mentioned spec homes, and we're talking contemporary. So I have one in Arcadia. It's on Lafayette. It's built, and then it was staged. The staging, and it's a contemporary house, and it's contemporary because it's not following old rules of tradition. So it's not trying to be old Mediterranean. It's not trying to be like a French chateau. It's just of its time and of its place. And so right next door, there's a church where the roof is a square, but it's actually rotated 45 degrees. So the way it faces the street is the pointed part of the square faces the street. It's like a diamond shape. So it comes like a triangle piece. I used an element of the church in the design of the roof for this house. And then I also used more just contemporary Southwest look because we're in Arizona, in Phoenix area. But then I also, since we're in Arcadia, used brick as my accent stone. So we didn't use just some sort of stone that was, I don't know, just a cool contemporary stone. We chose brick because we're in Arcadia, we have brick accents everywhere. So it's combining these things and doing it in a tasteful way. Then it was staged, so it's a spec home, and then it was staged, but the furniture inside is like mid-century modern. And like to some people, it's fine. Like it still looks good. I don't think it looks bad. But there's a little bit of a disconnect between the furniture and the overall form or space. And not I don't think it's that big of a deal, but at the same time, it would have been if we had more things that were just purely contemporary. I think it could have brought the project out even more, like brought out the architecture, and vice versa. The architecture could highlight the interior design a little bit more.
I think there's a lot that have to go together. And you mentioned that everyone does their thing. And we always encourage people to build your team around you that are going to be able to support your goal and dream. You have an architect, you have a designer, you have a realtor, you have your financial advisor, you have your lawyer. Like you need to have your team assembled in order to get to the outcome you want. And over time, your team members are going to be replaced with others and whatever it is, that's life. But I think a lot of people try to go into these big decisions with half of their team, right? They don't have the whole team assembled. And the outcome sometimes is not ideal. I'm not saying that's what's going on in this home that you are referencing. I'm just saying, just in other experiences, they don't have all of the information. So then when a decision needs to be made, they're not able to make it. We hit a brick wall. You mentioned that church, by the way. I'm assuming that church on one of the walking tours that you put on years ago, did we go by that church? Because I think we might have.
We may have actually, because I think once we hit maybe 56th Street, we might have switched from like Exeter to Lafayette
Okay.
around that time. Yeah. So it's off of
Because
Lafayette.
because as you're describing that church, I feel like people like went in and used the restroom.
Yeah.
I might have been one of those people.
Okay.
Your brother might have been one of those people, possibly, but it just sounds familiar. If it wasn't, that's
Yeah.
okay. But I think that everyone listening in like should also understand that we haven't just met each other through the real estate world or housing and development. We met each other in high school. We knew who of each other. We weren't best of friends. We were cordial, good student mate. But we reconnected, and I love this story. I actually just shared it not too long ago with someone. We reconnected. I was outside walking my dog. You were outside walking your dog, and we just like that's how we reconnected. And I was like, "What are you doing here?" You're like, "I live here." And I'm like, "I live here too."
Yeah.
And it was just one of those cool things. And I appreciate like our friendship. I appreciate the openness to learn from each other too. I think that's what makes us very powerful in how we help our clients and how we serve, because we're always curious. I know that you're curious on the real estate side. I'm very curious on the architecture side, and I think that's a good dynamic. So if someone's like trying to take something away from listening to this today, it's be curious, be open to re-engaging with people that you haven't talked to for a long time. You never know what's going to come of it or come out of it. Maybe just friendship, maybe business opportunities, maybe both. We both have experienced that, and a lot of growth, personal growth. We've seen our families grow up and continue to grow. It's a cool thing.
Yeah. I would second all that. I think that's a great takeaway. And just overall, if we didn't say that was 12 years ago, I think that we reconnected. It was probably 2013.
Hmm.
So we're still talking. So you never know where that, if you see someone, and I think about it too, like at networking events or anything like that, if you see someone start talking, if you get that connection, you never know where it's going to go. And the more that you can relate to each other and the more people you meet that are, I wouldn't say like you, but the ones you mesh well with, that becomes your circle.
Yeah.
And you don't know where it's going to lead, which you just know it feels right.
I don't remember who recognized who when we met up. Like, I just remember you saying Asher, like with a question mark. I
Yeah.
just remember that, but I don't remember. I think you could have engaged. I don't remember, but just be open to it. And I think that's a big piece. Everyone's in their box or they have their blinders up a lot of the time, and everyone's like thinking of like how the world or how people can serve themselves. But I think it's really like how we can serve, like how can we add value. And adding value is not as easy as what it sounds like. Adding value to you, Nicholas, is I have to know Nicholas to understand how to add value to Nicholas. And everyone likes to use the word add value or the term add value, but like we have to know each other. What are the things that you're interested in, and how can I add value? So I think that's a big piece, and that has nothing to do with real estate or architecture in any way, but it has everything to do with real estate and architecture. Because if you're curious, then what you're trying to create out of this dream home, Nicholas can help you do that if you're curious enough. But if you have the blinders and barriers up, then you might never be able to get the outcome you want because you're not able to articulate that to him.
Yeah. And I think similarly with you too, going in open, not being scared of this real estate agent. They're not going to treat me this way or having preconceived notions. It's about you're taking a little bit of a chance, but it's also ask around. And if you don't feel right, find someone else. If it feels right, continue. And I will say something that you just reminded me of, and it's something you said, I'm going to say maybe 8 years ago. You were talking about you're talking about being a good giver, right? You're talking about adding value and to give to people. But to be a good giver, you first have to be open to receiving. And that was a super powerful thing that you've said to me. Because if you're closed in the way you're approaching other people, you can in no way be a good giver if you're not willing to receive yourself.
Yeah, that is from the book Go Giver, I
Yeah.
believe. I'm
I
looking
think
at
about
my library. I'm looking at my
yeah,
library over there right now, and highly recommend everyone listening and watching to get into that book. Easy read, but just monumental, like, mind shift in how we do things. It's pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. I appreciate that. If someone's listening and they want to know more about architecture, they want to know more about real estate or how Nicholas and I can help you, you have to reach out because we don't know you're listening and watching, and we will respond if you do reach out. And we look forward to the opportunity to helping serve you. If it's something that we can take on, we'll let you know. If not, we can get you to someone that can help you with what you're trying to accomplish.
yeah, awesome.
Awesome. I think that's
I think we
I think
got it
there should
now.
be enough there.
Yeah.
That's some good stuff. Got deep at the end.
I like that
But
one.
that's
I think about it a lot, the being open to receive, because if no one's gonna want any real part of you if you're just like no one's gonna, I don't know, maybe trust you, or people are not gonna feel it. It won't feel right. If like someone keeps
yeah.
offering you something and you keep rejecting, but you're trying to give someone else, it doesn't work.
Well, and I think I don't know if it's going deeper or just like another way of interpreting that. People are afraid to win. Some people are afraid to win. They're afraid of success. Like they're afraid that what happens if what I'm pursuing actually comes to fruition, then what?
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. People are afraid to conquer their dreams or go after their dreams, not because they think they're not going to succeed, but because they think they will succeed. And I know that sounds so bizarre, but have you ever felt like that at all or no? Or maybe know someone that has ever, you can tell?
I know exactly. No, I know. I felt that way like myself. I know exactly what that feeling is. And if we want to talk about more psychology too, it's like it's not only fearing success, it's actually you're actually content with, you're forcing yourself to stay where you are because you're just forcing yourself to stay comfortable. So even
Mm-hmm.
if you're, and like I do it to myself all the time, and I'm recognizing it more that like I'm holding myself back, not by accident, it's on purpose, even if it's not like consciously saying hold yourself back, it's more being scared, like you're saying, what if it does work? And then it's also you're you like being where you are, even if you're saying you don't, even if you're burning out, you're forcing yourself to stay in that zone. Somehow, psychologically, you're doing it to yourself. So you're
Subconsciously,
subconsciously. And it's like a
self
self-sabotage.
sabotage. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel that all the time. I'm like, why am I doing this? If I want this, why would I do that?
Right.
It's like my own conflict, whatever.
It's like a
Yeah.
comfort blanket, though, right? Like people
Yeah.
are in relationships because it's comfortable, not because it's good for them. But it's also like when it comes to the business, if someone has a higher, they want to do more in their business, but yet every year they do the same amount of whatever they're doing. They're selling the same amount of widgets. They're selling the same amount of whatever. They're performing the same amount year after year, but they say they want to do more, but they don't. Like I've been there so many times, and it's what am I doing wrong? It's still high performance, but I feel like I'm just sometimes just scratching the surface. It's just one of those things. I
Yeah.
think the psychology has to do with a lot of things and our mindset with things and the mindset around architects. I think is people are like, I don't have the money for it, but you do.
Mhm.
People have the money for it. It's just you don't even know how much it is. So how can you say that? And then when it comes to real estate professionals, there's just so many of us. So that's the interesting thing, right? Like I don't know how many architects, how many licensed architects are there in Arizona? Do you know?
Nah, at one point I knew, but I can't. I don't know.
So I know it's not 60,000 licensees that like I'm like it's not it's just so crazy. Everyone has a license. And then it's like how do you, it's like the battle of like always distinguish like how do I differentiate myself from the other 59,999? And So I don't think you have that battle, but I think it's the psychology of I'm not building something of that, like to that degree that I have to hire an architect, but that doesn't necessarily mean that though.
What you compete with that, I guess, is a not the same, but I guess similar. You could draw parallels. Is that there are draftsmen who will charge. Let's say if we want to use a price per square foot, which is a pretty normal way for architects and draftsmen to charge, you might get a price from a draftsman for a full custom home, like $5 a square foot. You could ask also an architect, and you might be at $30 a square foot. So just there's that much separation or a gap. There's that big of a gap between what you can and cannot pay. So yeah, you do have to define your value. And that is part of why I would niche myself into hillside, why I would niche myself into like certain like zip codes, let's say, just because the $5 square foot person doesn't even exist in those circles. Now, the other thing you run up against is that if you call yourself an architect, then you have some sort of profession, you have the degree and you've passed exams, professional exams, blah, 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 done all these hours. And you have a stamp, a seal that means something. But there's also, for a house, you don't need to hire a registered architect to design a house. You could hire they'll call themselves usually just like a home designer. And so maybe they charge, I don't know, $12 a foot or something. So now their experience, and actually some of them are really good. So I don't know what you do with that, except for at least being a registered architect. What I would say is that you've taken a further step into contributing something to a profession that means something to you. Not, hey, I know how to use AutoCAD and I've designed a bunch of houses so I could do the project. It's like I have all those skills and I feel like I'm contributing to this larger thing called architecture that I'm very passionate about, I love, and I want to continue in this sort of tradition of believing that we're making some big difference.
Yeah.
Whether we are or not, who cares? I want to at least feel like I'm doing that.
No, you
Yeah,
are, and it's true. It's the perception of it and the reality of it, and they do intersect, and it's part of the deal. Good. I
nice.
appreciate the opportunity to do this with you today. It was great.